everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to be talking about how you can reflect in preparation for your applications and your interviews. So let's get into it. Now, especially for assistant psychologist interviews, you need to reflect. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Reflection is key to succeeding in AP interviews. It's also very important for DClinPsy interviews, but I think they look at other aspects, whereas for assistant psychologist interviews, reflection seems to be the thing that will make you stand out from other candidates. Reflection is the act of thinking critically about a situation and learning from it. So I like to use two different models to kind of structure my reflections. So the first one is Gibbs's reflective cycle. Now I like this one, it's just a bit too long for my liking. I will use this when I'm doing any written reflections, but for interviews I tend to opt for Driscoll's model of reflection, which is this one, and it's very short, sweet and simple. But I think using them in conjunction with each other when you're preparing for applications and interviews is so helpful. Now I'll mention here that I have made some templates which have done all the hard work for you pretty much, and it will allow you to organise your reflections in a very succinct way, and I basically do all of the groundwork for you and then you can just spend the time reflecting. But if you don't want to buy that, then this video is for you. While using Driscoll's model, you need to take a situation, whether that be at work or at home, and think about what. So what happened in that situation? Who was there? When did it take place? What was going on? So really describing what went on in that situation. Then moving on to so what? So why is this event significant to you? Did something go wrong? Did something go right? What was challenging about it? And then the now what is the now. What are you going to do about that? With all of the information that you've gathered, what are you going to do? So are you going to act differently? Are you going to act the same? Now I find that with interviews and applications, you want to focus on situations where things have gone wrong. And that might seem kind of counterproductive because you want to show off your strengths. But actually, when you reflect within an interview, you want to show them that you're able to use a situation where something went wrong as a learning experience so that in the future you can do it right or better. And that's actually more of a skill than doing it right the first time. So the first topic which I think everyone should reflect on is your own journey so far. Map out all of the jobs that you have ever done and think about the skills that you've learnt within each role. When you write it out, it will give you a better idea of what professional skills you've actually learnt over time, and it's actually a really good confidence boost. You feel like you've achieved so much, and at times we can forget about all of the learning we've done throughout our lives. Another thing that I like to reflect on is my own strengths and weaknesses, and this partly comes down to what they ask you in interviews. There's always a question about this some way or another. It might not be worded in that way. It's always a good idea to think about what you're good at and what you're not so good at, but also think about why these strengths are important for the role, and also think about how you've tried to improve the weakness that you've outlined. There's no point in just writing down all of the good things about yourself and all of the bad things about yourself for no reason. You need to link it to the job that you're applying to. Another thing that I like to spend time reflecting on is how my personal life has impacted my work. Has something happened in my personal life that makes working with people kind of challenging? Has something happened in my personal life that has changed the way that I will act with other professionals at work? Think about situations in your life that have been quite pivotal in your development and think about how those experiences have impacted you at work. I think that's a very important thing when reflecting about personal experiences, because you don't want to talk about personal experiences in interviews and then not link it to the job. You're not there for them to get to know you. You're there to interview for a job. So while they might have asked you a question about your personal life, they want you to link it to the role. So how has that experience impacted your working? Something else which I have more recently started reflecting on, and I probably should have done this before, but the social graces. So the social graces are an acronym to describe the different parts of people's identity that afford them different levels of privilege. So here are the social graces. Now what I think is very helpful to do is to pick one of the social graces and think about how much privilege you have in relation to that one. Then think about what it would look like if you didn't have the privilege. Spend some time reflecting on whether this part of your identity has impacted the way that you've worked, and also think about how other people's identity have impacted the way that you work? So have you had to make some adjustments maybe for someone's cultural identity? So spend some time thinking about the different social graces. Another thing which I think is so important to reflect on is why you've chosen psychology. Psychology is such a hard career to get into at times, so what motivates you to keep going? And why were you interested in it in the first place? Was it a person? Was it a book? Was it a TV show? Think about this, because why haven't you chosen a different mental health profession? I think this part of reflection is very important in keeping you motivated application after application. I also think it's very important to reflect on the role of a psychologist. This comes up mainly in doctorate interviews, but you need to know what a clinical psychologist does and where the role is going. How are things changing within the profession? What current pressures are clinical psychologists currently under that are impacting their role? So have a think about that, especially before doctorate interviews. Now, reflecting on the different points from the person specification is very important, because this is what the interview questions are mainly about, especially assistant psychologist interviews. Think about how you have shown the skills that are listed in the person specification points. So if it's about communication, reflect on a time where you have shown good communication or bad communication, but highlight how you've learned from that. Reflecting on the trust values is really important, and I don't think many people do it at all, but this is what forms the basis of the trust that you're working for. This is what they hope that all of their employees will have in order to provide the best care possible. So for the trust that I work in, one of the values are compassionate. So I thought about how I've shown compassionate care in the past and how I can do that again in the future. So think about the experiences that have highlighted that you have those qualities. When you reflect on the trust values, it's really helpful because you're letting the employer know that you would be a good fit for their team and their trust. And the final two, which I think you need to reflect on, are any significant clinical cases that you've worked on or any significant research that you've read. So with the clinical cases, were there any clients that you found particularly tricky to work with? Or did something go wrong? Where did you really have to lean on your supervisor? So think about those cases and then use the models to reflect upon them. But also when you read research, you need to be thinking reflectively and think about how you can use that piece of research in your current work. Now, I think the main thing with reflection is making sure that you link your learning experiences to the specific job that you're applying to. So how have those previous experiences made you a better candidate for the role that you're applying to? Why are these specific skills important for the specific role that you're applying to? So for example, why is communication especially important for a role in a learning disability team? Pick up on those smaller details and really link your reflections to the current role and also the wider picture. Think about what it means to be a psychologist within the era of a pandemic. Think about what it means when we're under a lot of pressure due to the increase in mental health needs. Make sure that you're thinking widely. People say this all the time, but really think about what a psychologist will do in the outside world. So those are all of the topics that I would personally reflect on and have reflected on in preparation for interviews and applications. Now, hopefully by reflecting on all of these different topics, you are going to go into your interviews and applications prepared. So when they ask you questions, think about the experiences that you've reflected on and use them in your answers. This is how I think preparation should be done for interviews. I've tried in the past to memorize answers and that has never worked because you can never anticipate the questions. So your preparation time should be spent on reflecting rather than writing or memorizing any answers. So with my templates, they actually give you a space to reflect on each of these topics and organize all of your thoughts. So I've done all of the groundwork for you, which has made it a little bit easier. But you could just use this video to create your own templates and spend some time reflecting on each of these topics. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. Please give it a like if you liked it and subscribe for more content like this. And until next time, guys, I will see you later. Bye.